in the shadowed valleys of ancient China. Long before the world understood the heavens, a spark ignited that would one day lift humanity beyond the sky. It was a spark born not in laboratories or observatories, but in the hands of humble inventors who sought to command fire itself. The first rockets, crude and unpredictable, were little more than bamboo tubes filled with black powder. Yet within them was the seed of dreams too vast for their time. They hissed and sputtered as they flew into the night, illuminating the dark sky with fleeting trails of smoke and fire. To the onlookers, they were magical, terrifying, and inexplicably alive. Some say that when the rockets soared during festivals or on battlefields, it was as if the heavens themselves were participating, judging, and applauding humanity's audacity. These early rockets were as much weapons as they were symbols. Armies wielded them with trembling hands, launching them over city walls or into the ranks of enemies. A mixture of hope, fear, and explosive chemistry propelling each flight. The inventors could not have imagined that centuries later, the principles they discovered would become the foundation for spacecraft to leave Earth entirely. But in those moments, it was enough that a human mind could light a fire, harness its violent energy, and send it flying toward the unknown. Time marched onward, and the art of rocketry traveled westward, carried by trade, conquest, and curiosity. In medieval Europe, the alchemists and engineers looked at these Eastern inventions with a mixture of wonder and skepticism. They experimented with powders and metals, seeking to master the same fiery propulsion. The experiments were dangerous. Explosions often destroyed workshops, sometimes taking the lives of those who dared to dream too boldly. Yet in the sparks and smoke, the future whispered its possibilities. The first tentative flights of European rockets were small, shaky, and often tragic, but they carried the same spirit as the bamboo tubes of the Chinese inventors. Humanity reaching toward the sky with trembling hands and unyielding ambition. It was not until the dawn of the 20th century that rocketry began to evolve from dangerous curiosity into scientific pursuit. Visionaries, often dismissed as dreamers, began to calculate trajectories, measure fuel ratios, and design engines with unprecedented precision. Among them stood a German engineer, Werner von Braun, whose mind seemed to hold the stars themselves. He understood that to reach beyond the Earth, one needed not only courage but mathematics, physics, and an unflinching willingness to confront the unknown. His work, controversial and shadowed by the horrors of war, nevertheless propelled rocketry into a new age. Under his guidance, the V-2 rocket, known as Aggregate 4, rose with terrifying power, a metallic serpent of fire tearing through the sky during the final days of World War II. It was a weapon of destruction, yet simultaneously a proof that humanity could escape the bonds of gravity. The V-2 soared farther and faster than any previous human creation. Engineers watched nervously as it climbed into altitudes previously reserved for clouds, then vanished from sight, leaving trails of smoke and human ambition. In its destructive wake lay the blueprint for peaceful exploration. Every calculation, every explosion, every fearful glance at the rising flame became lessons for the generations that would follow. The paradox was stark. War had accelerated the tools for peace. The very rockets designed to terrorize had unlocked the path to the stars. After the ashes of conflict, the world stood divided, yet united in a shared fascination. What lay beyond the sky? The United States and the Soviet Union engaged in a tense, breathless contest known as the space race. Each nation poured its intellect, resources, and pride into crafting rockets that could carry not bombs, but dreams into orbit. The Soviet engineers build in G upon the knowledge acquired from captured V-2 designs and their own innovations, launched the R-7 rocket on October 4, 1957. It carried the tiny, gleaming sphere of Sputnik 1 into orbit, a simple satellite that transformed the world. That small, silent object became a beacon, demonstrating that humanity had, at last, pierced the veil of Earth's atmosphere. People everywhere looked skyward, some with awe, others with anxiety, all recognizing that the age of imagination had become an age of action. The R-7 and its descendants grew in size and sophistication. Rockets became colossal towers of steel and fire, engines roaring with a power that made the earth tremble beneath them. They carried not only machines but living humans, fragile beings seated atop columns of combustion, hurtling into the black velvet of space. On April 12, 1961, Yuri Gagarin's Vostok 1 soared beyond the clouds and into history. From his tiny capsule, he looked upon Earth as a whole, a fragile, radiant sphere suspended in an endless void. His voice, calm and steady, carried across the ether, a reminder that every invention, every calculation, every spark that had flown from ancient bamboo tubes to the laboratories of Germany had led to this moment. Humanity was no longer earthbound. It had begun to touch the infinite. Yet the story of rockets is not merely a tale of technical achievement. It is the story of courage, obsession, and the boundless yearning for the unknown. Each rocket, whether it burned for seconds or hours, carried the collective hopes of generations. They represented the tension between fear and aspiration, the duality of creation and destruction, the human tendency to challenge limits. Watching a rocket launch is like witnessing the Earth itself exhale, as though acknowledging the persistent drive of its inhabitants to transcend their own boundaries. Rockets reshaped the world in ways both subtle and profound. They influenced politics, economics, and culture, inspiring poets and scientists alike. Children stared at the night sky, imagining the trails of fire as pathways to distant worlds. Scientists calculated orbits, refined fuels, and designed spacecraft capable of docking in the vacuum of space. Philosophers and writers contemplated the meaning of exploration, the fragility of life, and the vast, indifferent universe. Every step in rocketry carried humanity closer to understanding its place among the stars. The cinematic beauty of rocketry lies in its drama. A launch is a choreography of timing, fire, and steel. Engines ignite with a thunderous roar, shaking the ground as flames lick the sky. Smoke curls and spirals, the rocket rising steadily, fighting gravity with every inch. Onlookers hold their breath as the vehicle climbs higher, a distant point of light against the infinite canvas of night. Then, in moments of silent wonder, the rocket vanishes, leaving only the memory of its flight and the promise of what lies ahead. It is a dance of physics and ambition, a fleeting testament to humanity's desire to transcend, to soar, to touch the unreachable. Today, rockets carry satellites, telescopes, and probes to the farthest reaches of our solar system. They explore worlds unseen, sending back images of planets, moons, and rings that were once the stuff of dreams. They allow scientists to probe the origins of the universe, to study the sun and distant galaxies, to understand phenomena that defy imagination. Yet for all their complexity, they are still echoes of that first spark in ancient China. A bamboo tube filled with black powder, flying into the night with a hiss and a flare, daring to reach for the sky. The legacy of rockets is both human and eternal. They remind us of the ingenuity required to overcome natural limits, of the courage to risk everything for the sake of discovery, and of the poetic beauty of fire and motion. Every launch, every orbit, every mission to the stars is a continuation of a story that began centuries ago with simple curiosity and a spark of fire. From bamboo to liquid-fueled engines, from war to peace, from Earth to orbit, rockets tell a story of humanity itself. Relentless, daring, imaginative, and forever reaching upward. And so, as the sun sets and the night stretches its velvet across the horizon, one can almost hear the whispers of the past, the crackle of early rockets in a distant Chinese valley, the roar of V-2s in a European sky, the triumphant hiss of a Soviet R-7 lifting a satellite into orbit. Each flame, each plume of smoke, each trembling launch pad carries forward our legacy. The unyielding desire to leave behind the familiar, to pierce the unknown, and to touch the infinite. Humanity's first rockets were small, simple, and fragile, yet within them burned the boundless fire of aspiration. A fire that still lights the sky, guiding us ever onward.